Everyone, I finished watching the next Time Force episode, Time for Lightspeed, the team-up episode with Lightspeed Rescue. It was really good. I really like this episode. It's a fun episode. Let's see, summary. There's a really cool opening. It's really atmospheric. It's dark. It's night. There's like mist over a graveyard, and the camera pans over this headstone, and suddenly we see a hand burst up through the ground. Then there's all these guys with black masks that pop up through the ground, and then the hand like crawls up, and then we see it's VIPRE, returned from the dead somehow. Don't question it. Anyway, she has these new minions, who are these guys with black masks with these little ponytail things on top, and with the robes they're wearing, they look a lot like Lothor from Ninja Storm. Huh, that's interesting. I wonder if Lothor... I always wondered if Lothor took any inspiration from these guys. Because I remember when Ninja Storm premiered, and I first saw Lothor, the first thing I thought of was these guys, and I was like, oh, he looks like one of them guys. Oh, whatever. Probably a coincidence. I don't know if maybe one of these masks, like, survived the trip over to New Zealand, and I don't know, when they had the bad guy, they were like, oh, we need something to make him look evil, and they were like, here's a mask we found. Oh, cool, that works, and who knows, whatever. Anyway, VIPRE's back from the dead, and she has a bunch of minions. Oh, and the weird thing is, where VIPRE comes up, if you look behind her, the headstone behind her says VIPRE on it. Who bothered to put a headstone for VIPRE here? That's so weird. And I was wondering, like, was that put there by Lightspeed? Because it's on Earth. Like, it's not in, like, another dimension or anything, or at least if it is, it's not made clear. So, anyway, I was thinking, like, did Lightspeed put up the headstone just out of, like, a weird respect for her or something? Are there headstones for Diabolico and Loki, too? I don't know. Be weird. Who knows, whatever. Moving on from that, VIPRE has this new plan to, what is it? Oh, yeah. She goes over this museum in Silver Hills, so I guess Mariner Bay isn't too far from Silver Hills. That's interesting to know. So she goes into this museum, and she goes to this glass case with this orange thing inside. And there's this really cool effect where she reaches her hand through the glass. The glass, like, melts around her arm, and she grabs the thing, tries to pull it out, but I guess the powers are only for her. Another object can't go through. Huh. So I was wondering, like, what if the orb, orange thing, what if it was smaller than her hand? Like, what if it was the size of a marble, and she held it in her fist, and pulled her fist through the glass? Then would it come out? If she turned it on its side, and pulled it out so that it's, like, on this side of her hand, and her hand is, like, completely around this part? Huh. Who knows? Anyway, the thing isn't coming out, and VIPRE doesn't realize that she tripped a silent alarm when she went in there. So when she goes out of the museum, the Silver Guardians are out there waiting for her. She summons her minions, they blast at the Silver Guardians, and then her and her minions retreat, the Time Force Rangers, just to get there. And they go up to Eric. Eric, what's going on? I don't know. And then, yeah, the Time Force Rangers help the Silver Guardians out, and then theme song plays. Then we see VIPRE. Let's see. Looking through my notes here. Okay. VIPRE goes into Ransik's base, and, like, she doesn't just immediately go to him. She, like, sits in the front part of the base for some reason. Yeah, she wakes up Nadira by accident. Nadira goes to wake up Ransik, then they go, and then they find her, like, just sitting there. Why didn't she just go and, like, wake up Ransik herself? How did she even know Ransik was here? Whatever. Anyway, she tells Ransik that she wants his help to get the, what was it? Oh yeah, the solar amulet? Is that what it's called? Oh yeah, solar amulet. Why is it called solar amulet? Like, I guess solar because, I don't know, it uses sun energy, but amulet is kind of a weird word for a big blob of orange. Whatever. Rancic agrees, and then, let's see. Oh yeah, VIPRE also tells him that with the solar amulet, she can summon a demon, the, how is it, Quarganon. That's a crazy name. I wasn't sure how to spell it at first. So anyway, the Rangers are staking out the museum the next day to try and stop VIPRE, and then Rancic and some Cyclobots, let's see, oh yeah, VIPRE and her minions, they show up, they fight with the Rangers, then Rancic and the Cyclobots sneak past. They get to the amulet, and instead of doing the weird, like, hand through the glass thing, one of the Cyclobots just opens it. Okay. And so then they take it, and then, let's see. Oh yeah. So the bad guys have the orb, they get away, the Rangers are left behind, they're trying to figure out a plan for how to get it back, and then we see a familiar vehicle driving up, and someone gets out of it, and we see it's Carter from Lightspeed, and it's so cool to see Carter back. And one of the really nice things here is we get to hear, like, the old music cues from Lightspeed Rescue. That is a really cool thing that, after the original Saban era, we don't really get anymore. In the Disney era, like, the seasons didn't really have their own unique music cues, not in the series. Like, they had theme songs that were different, but in the show, the music was all pretty much the same, or it was stock music. So this is like a really unique thing that really only the original Saban era ever did. I really wish they could do it now, but if they were to do it now, it wouldn't really mean anything. Like, say if they bring Ninja Steel or Beast Morphers back in Dino Fury, and they played, like, music cues from their specific seasons, there's not really a whole lot that stands out as being recognizable and unique to those seasons. It's all the same kind of music. So, anyway, back to this thing. Let's see. They take Carter to the clock tower, and Carter tells the Rangers about what VIPRE's plans are, and then we see each of the different Lightspeed Rangers being contacted. And this is a really cool scene, too, and something I really wish they could do in other team-up episodes, because it's a good moment for, like, character interaction and character progression after their original season had ended. Let's see, first up, we see they call Dana the Pink Ranger. She's a doctor now. And then we see Joel, who's with Dr. Fairweather, and they're married. They're about to go on a honeymoon to Hawaii. That's probably the biggest thing, the biggest change of a character from the end of Lightspeed, because it was something that was, like, set up. Like, it starts off with Joel likes Fairweather, Joel hits on Fairweather, Fairweather isn't really interested, and eventually she starts being a little more warmed up to him, and then by the end, they do like each other, and they genuinely like each other, and they're going to go out together, and now we see that they've actually gotten married, and that's a cool thing. Kelsey hasn't really progressed. She's just out skating at some event or something. It doesn't look to be like a big tournament or anything super important, but she's having fun. So, good for her. Sorry about that, I'm still getting over a cold. So anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, Chad, the Blue Ranger of Lightspeed. He's a lifeguard at a beach now, and one of the things that's kind of disappointing about this team-up is that it's only a one-part episode. A single episode. Most team-up episodes, they would be 2 parts, but this one, it's only a single episode. And I feel like if it was 2 parts, then maybe we could have had, like, a little bit more seeing what they're doing and have a little bit more character stuff with the old Rangers, or explaining a little bit of, like, where they are, what's going on. We don't see Ryan in all this. I'm thinking if this had been a 2-parter, we definitely would have seen what Ryan was doing. One of the things with Chad, the big thing in Lightspeed was him and that mermaid girl, and I think that would have been a cool thing to bring back, is if they had him talking with that mermaid girl. Just a little scene of that or something. It would have been nice to bring it back, but whatever. It's not super important, and it still works in this episode the way they do it. So then, let's see. VIPRE is underground with Rancic, beginning the ceremony to summon Quarganon. And the cool thing about where they are underground, it looks, I'm pretty sure it's the same location or set or whatever that they used for in Lightspeed when they would try to resurrect Banshira. They had this guy, like, casting a spell to resurrect Banshira. So that's a cool thing. It makes me wonder if this was, like, a place the demons knew about, that this was, like, a place special or specific, like, special for summoning things or something. It's a neat thing. A neat little bit of consistency. Let's see. Carter and Wes break in. They interrupt the ceremony. They take back the amulet, and then they drive off. And then VIPRE chases them in her VIPRE go-kart, and that's a really funny little thing to bring back, because it was such a goofy little thing in Lightspeed that VIPRE had this dumb little go-kart thing that they all made a big deal about. Let's see. So anyway, she managed the corner Carter and Wes, and let's see. Rancic shows up. Give me back the amulet or whatever. And Carter is like, well, I'm not going to give it back, and he's about to smash it. But then suddenly all the minions show up holding the Rangers hostage. Jen yells, "Smash it, Carter!" And Carter can't bring himself to do it. He hands it over to VIPRE. But just then, the Lightspeed Rangers all show up and blast it out of her hands. And then, let's see. Then Eric drives up with Ryan, which I think is a clue to if this had been a longer, like, two-parter, there would have been some interaction between Eric and Ryan, because Eric hasn't really been a huge part of this episode so far. He's at the beginning, but he's not with the Rangers when they make the plan to stake out the museum or anything. So I'm thinking that maybe, let's see, Ryan was coming, like, from Mariner Bay to Silver Hills to join the Silver Guardians, or something involved with that. And so he's doing that. He gets involved with Eric, he meets Eric, and then he's contacted by Carter to come to this thing. Eric overhears, and he's like, hey, what's that all about? And Ryan's like, there's trouble. And Eric, I don't know if Eric would reveal to him that he's a Ranger, or if maybe Ryan already knows he's a Ranger. It'd be a really cool thing. I think fans would love to see some interaction between Ryan and Eric, two fan-favorite characters. So anyway, they drive up, and then they all morph, and they battle the villains, and one by one they take down the minions, and then the Rangers have Battleizers all activate the Battleizers, and then, let's see, they blast VIPRE and Horgonon, they're destroyed, and then it ends with the Time Force Rangers taking the Lightspeed Rangers up to the clock tower to show them around. They trade uniforms, except for Ryan. Ryan, like, gives his uniform to Jen, and Jen just puts it on the couch. Okay. Yeah, Eric didn't come with them. Eric isn't, like, friendly buddy-buddy with the Time Force Rangers at this point. Or really any point in the show until... yeah, I'm not even sure at the end. So I don't know, maybe they're going to give it to him later? Or maybe they're going to give it to Circuit. I think that would have been a nice little compromise, because Circuit does fly in and talk a few lines to the Time Force Rangers. I think that would have been a cute thing if they, like, put the Lightspeed jacket on Circuit. That would be awesome! I want to see that now. Anyway, there's a little bit where, let's see, the Time Force Rangers put on the Lightspeed jackets, and one of them says, you got the uniform, now do the dance! And they do the thing, the morphs thing, that's really cool. And then we see them all driving back to Mariner Bay. The Lightspeed Rangers are in their little Jeep thing, and the Rangers are all on the cycles, and it's really cool. Then it ends. Great episode. Not an amazing episode. This was never even my favorite of the team-up episodes, but it's one I like. I like it a lot. It does pretty much everything right. The only, like, major weak point is... well, there's two weak points I want to talk about. One of them is the fact that it's only one episode, so it really limits the time. But I think they utilize it as best as they could, because this episode moves really, really quick. Like, of all of Time Force, this is probably the fastest-paced episode. Like, it's just, big thing happens, big thing happens, big thing happens, big thing happens. There's not many really slow moments or things that slow down the pace of the episode. Sorry. Stuffed up nose still. Anyway, I was talking about the pacing. The pacing is really quick here, and I think that's probably the best way to handle an episode like this, a team-up episode where you're really, really limited. You don't want to spend too much time on superfluous things that, in the end, really don't matter, Like, I like to compare this episode to Dimensions in Danger from Ninja Steel. It was another episode that was a single episode, but it still managed to meander a lot. Like, surprisingly a lot. Like, one of the bad things in Dimensions in Danger was the bad guy. For one thing, he just comes right out of nowhere. There's no legacy or relevance to him. He's just some guy that everyone happens to know because, I don't know. And the other thing is, he constantly, and everybody else constantly reminds us, like, what his goal is to, like, fire a magic arrow at the whatever, which turns out to be ultimately pointless because they immediately knock his arrows down. So why do we have to keep being reminded of that? When that time could have been spent, like, being given to the different Rangers, or given some backstory to how the Rangers know this guy. Like, I don't know, maybe this guy is the reincarnation of some old villain or something. I think that would have been a lot better. Whatever, I'm not gonna complain about that too much anyway. Back to, Time for Lightspeed. Let's see. VIPRE is a really cool... Like, one of the things in Dimensions in Danger that was disappointing was the bad guy. I can't remember what his name was now. Oh yeah, Dravon. That was his name. And I only remember that because I remember a bunch of fans said it sounds a lot like Draken from the comics. Except Draven was somehow even worse than Draken was, anyway. In this, bringing back VIPRE was a really cool idea, and there wasn't really a whole lot else they could have done. Like, the only other villain, I think, coming back that would have made a lot of sense is, Olympius. I think Olympius coming back might have made a little bit more sense, because he was somebody who was obsessed with, like, I don't know what the word is, like... Dang, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, re-putting the demons back on Earth. Re-establishing the demon empire back on Earth. That's what I'm thinking of. Sorry to keep pausing. I'm getting over a bad cold and my nose keeps running. Anyway, Olympius, if he had come back, it would have been cool to see him back, even though, of all the Lightspeed villains, he was probably my least favorite. I like having VIPRE back a lot more. The only problem is VIPRE's not really a sympathetic character at all, but I don't know, that works for her here, I guess. Loki and Diabolico, them coming back wouldn't really make sense because they probably wouldn't really want to establish a demon empire on Earth anymore because of the way they were treated by Banshira. They'd probably be like, no, well, I don't think really bringing the demons back on Earth is that good of a deal. It's way better in the underworld anyway. And, like, they've already taken over, basically. They pull Banshira down in there, and presumably, yeah, they have power over her now somehow. Or maybe not. Maybe she's ruling over them now. Actually, that would have been a cool thing, is if Diabolico and Loki escape from the Shadow World or Underworld, whatever it's called, and instead of fighting the Rangers, they want to team up with the Rangers to take out Banshira. That'd be an interesting fanfiction. Somebody write that, whatever. Anyway, back to this. Let's see. One of the weird things, VIPRE, her resurrection isn't really explained. Where her minions came from isn't explained. Where she knows Korganon from isn't explained. I'm assuming it's a situation like she's in the Shadow World or wherever, and she comes across, like, these minions or, like, other dead demons that are down there, and she builds them up as followers, and then, I don't know, maybe Korganon was somebody she meets down there, and she's like, hey, do you want to come to Earth with me? I found a way to escape, and he's like, I can't escape because, I don't know. Maybe it's like a Mordecon situation where he's too powerful to fit through or something, or maybe the amulet has some kind of backstory that locks him in there, and there's like a curse that has to be lifted off it. None of this is explained in the actual episode. It's all just stuff that happens to keep the story going, and like, I keep thinking that if this had been a two-parter, they probably would have explained this all a lot more in detail, but even as the episode is, it doesn't really need all this. This is all just, like, exposition that would slow the story down, and again, with a limited to one episode, they don't want to do that. So, let's see. Seeing all the Lightspeed Rangers back was cool. And this is the first time that we have two entire teams of all six Rangers of each team. Let's see, back in Lightspeed, when they did Trakeena's Revenge, we had, what was it? Oh yeah, no Mike. Mike wasn't there. And then in Lost Galaxy, had the In-Space Rangers come back with no Zane. And there, it really didn't make any sense why Zane wasn't there. The only, two teams who had, a full team-up was in Rangers of Two Worlds, where all the Alien Rangers teamed up with all the Zeo Rangers, if you don't count Trey. Oh, and also in Lightspeed, if you don't count Corone, she wasn't there either. So, let's see. One of the really cool things is seeing the character progressions in this episode. It's really cool to see the characters, moving on with their lives and doing things that feel natural to their characters. They're not there just to be props. Like in Dimensions in Danger again, the old Rangers who came back, they're handled okay, but aside from Tommy, they could basically be anybody. You could have brought back any Rangers and it wouldn't really change anything. The dialogue that they say doesn't even really fit their unique characters. In here, there's characters who don't really get a lot of lines, but it's okay, because unlike in Dimensions in Danger, you don't hear them just saying things to say things. In Dimensions in Danger, a bunch of the Rangers have one or two random lines that could have been said by anybody, or they're just stating the obvious. Like at the end, I remember, was it TJ and Rocky are like, well, you guys defeated Lord Draven, everything's back to normal, or whatever dumb, stupid dialogue they said just so that they could say that they have dialogue. It was just so they could say that they had dialogue. It's really annoying when they do that. So in here, it just feels natural. There's certain characters who don't have a lot of lines. Kelsey and Chad don't have many lines other than when they're first contacted by Carter. Let's see. One of the things that really is cool about seeing this episode is seeing how much the crew behind the scenes had learned since Trakeena's Revenge. Because Trakeena's Revenge was filled with just problems. This one really fixed a lot of the problems that were in Trakeena's Revenge. In Trakeena's Revenge, that episode just meandered around so much that, it was a two-parter, and it really didn't need to be. That episode could have been, one episode. Oh, boy. Trakeena's Revenge was so really disappointing, but anyway. This episode really keeps the pace up, whereas Trakeena's Revenge really didn't. Let's see. Seeing if... one of the things, there was, a side character who meant nothing. Let's see. They bring Trakeena back, and that was kind of cool, but she never, fights the Rangers one-on-one in that episode, and until the end, when they just put in unrelated stock footage of a monster who has, no connection and no relevance to Trakeena or Lost Galaxy. It's just some random monster. And that's one of the really nice things in this episode, and also kind of a bad thing. One of the weak things in Time for Lightspeed is the way VIPRE and Korganon are defeated. After all the hype, Korganon turns out to be just a rando monster who's not really all that strong. And so all the Rangers team up, they all blast their weapons, and there's a tiny little... and then they're gone. And the Rangers are like, yeah, and... I'm sitting there, I'm waiting, are they going to grow or something? Okay, I guess not. I remember being a kid and being totally thrown by the ending to this, where VIPRE and Korganon are just poof. And then gone. I was sitting there thinking, are they going to come back? Are they going to be giants? Nope. Again, maybe if there was a two-parter, they would have done, a giant VIPRE. That would have been pretty cool, because yeah, we never saw VIPRE grow giant. It would have been cool to see, a giant human character, a face character like that, but they never do it. But on the other hand, I'm glad they didn't, just cut to completely unrelated monster footage and just say that it was the same character, because that was really disrespectful, I think, in Trakeena's Revenge to do that. Also, we don't have, a random new character who just doesn't really mean anything, like Heather. And, Heather was fine in Trakeena's Revenge, but again, she has no relevance or connection to Lost Galaxy. She has no relevance or connection to Lightspeed Rescue. She's just this weird new character who only shows up in those 2 episodes, and even then, she's barely in the second part, which shows like just how important she was to the overall plot. So then, let's see. Looking through my notes here. One of the really nice things was Ron Roget, whatever, from Lightspeed Rescue, who played Captain Mitchell. He actually is in this episode, but not as Captain Mitchell. Instead, he's the voice of Korganon. Oh, that's a cool little way to keep him involved. Another weird ADR voice actor trivia note is that Catherine Sutherland did the voice for Dana in some of the morphed scenes. That's really interesting. And then there was a weird thing on Ranger Wiki. It said that there's a scene where the Time Force Rangers, during the morphed fight, their voices are the Lightspeed Rangers. Huh. I didn't notice. I'll have to, like, keep that in mind the next time I watch this, but I didn't notice it. And I watched this episode twice. And I've seen it a couple of times since I was a kid, and I've never noticed that, so... if that's true, cool. Cool thing to notice. Let's see. Yeah, that's all I have in my notes for these episodes, or this one episode. I really love this one. I'd really love if team-ups in the future took more influence from this. Episodes like this, or reinforcements from the future of, like, how to... or what, even Once a Ranger, on, like, how to do character stuff, which is what the fans want. Like, there's a reason why Legendary Battle and Dimensions in Danger stand out as, like, there's some fans who like them okay, and then there's fans who just absolutely hate them. Oh, and also Grid Connection. Holy crap, is that just a trash fire. Anyway, don't know what else to say about this one. It's a really good episode. There's a lot of positives about, like, what you would want from a team-up episode, and I really hope that if Dino Fury or whatever comes next, the Jonathan Entwistle series, upcoming movies, or the Power Rangers animated thing they keep talking about off and on, like, if any of that ever tries to do a team-up... oh, and there's also David Yost's Quantum Continuum thing. If that gets made, like, any of that, I'd really love to see team-ups more like this, or reinforcements from the future, or going back, like Always a Chance would be a really good influence for a future team-up. Anyway, I don't want to ramble on for too much longer, so that's all for this one. So yeah.